If you're recording something quite slow on GarageBand, it's really imperative that you get the rhythm tracks or the rhythm guide tracks really tight sounding first. What I mean by that is if you've got the metronome, which is really slow, you need lots of stuff in between that you can bounce off and make sure that you keep yourself in time. And more importantly, that you don't rush it through. That's often the case. If it's a very, very slow tune, you can make it rush. Now, there are ways of getting around this. If I go into a new document, I'm going to go to acoustic drums first, and I'm going to input the bass and the snare only, and I'll explain myself in a minute. I'm going to select a tempo of, let's try 66 or something. Yeah, 66. So the tempo is quite slow. If I press play, now I'd like to put my own bespoke kick and snare in, but I'm going to use a different hi-hat in a minute. So here we go with the kick and snare. It's just, I quite like 4 on the floor. It's quite basic sounding. It's quite sort of cutting. Ooh. I'll do that again. Okay, that's all right. I'm just going to do 2 bars to save time. I'm going to go in and edit this just to make sure that I've got the volumes of my drums right. You need to do all this stuff because it makes it so much easier afterwards, and you'll thank your lucky stars you did. Now I need to make sure that I've quantized to the correct level. It defaults to 16ths, but I want swing 16ths. Dingy dingy gacka dingy 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 gacka dingy ding, that sort of thing. So if I just go back into that now, I'll just go to edit and press play. Now I need those bass drums to be a little bit more subtle than that. I need lower velocities on anything that's off the beat, because then it doesn't mean that it's the strong beat. That's the stronger one. That's all right. Now this time I've got my bass drums, my offbeat bass drums, to be much, much quieter. That's what a drummer does. They go ba-ba, ba-ba. Okay, that third snare just needs a bit of a sort. Maybe I can just take the overall snare level down as well. There we go. You can do that. You can draw around everything and decrease the velocity of them all at once as well. So actually, I would like the snares a little bit louder. Okay, sounding fairly basic at the moment and not very groovy. That's fine. I'm just going to loop that because I'm going to now add the GarageBand drummer, just the hi-hats. Why have I done this? Why didn't I just program them in at the same time? Well, there's something else I'm going to do. If I take all the fills away, raise the complexity all the way to 4, I'm going to take the level down a bit, and I'm going to get the 16th heavy swing so that now we've got this. Okay, that's all right. However, those hi-hats are ever so slightly rushing the beat. This is the thing about swing, is that you can actually come unstuck with the timing. You think, why isn't it grooving? And actually, the slower the swing, the different it is to when you play at a faster tempo. So you can have generic swing, or you can have swing that actually varies according to tempo, which is actually strictly the more true there. Now I'm going to go into plugins and EQ on the hi-hat channel, and I'm going to use one of the audio unit plugins. Now these audio unit extensions, these are different to the standard GarageBand effects. They don't look very pretty, but they really help you. Right down at the bottom, we've got something called sample delay. This allows you to delay something by the very, very smallest amounts. So if I go in, you've got one control, samples. What does that mean? Well, there are 44,100 of them in a second. So if you just have an in and out delay of 44 samples, for example, that's 1,000th of a second. Is this going to make all the difference? Well, I'll let you decide. That is sitting much better than this. Hi-hats are just too fast. They're just racing along a bit. So we had 46 samples. That's better. I mean, I could go a little bit further perhaps. Let's see what happens. I'm even more into that. If you go too far, you can see the fine control that you can get into here. You really can do anything you like. Yeah, I don't want that sort of huge delay. I quite like that. Now, of course, the hi-hats they're not too loud with respect to the kick and the snare, but of course the level of your of all of the drums is also going to have an effect. Now, I could also use a percussion track. Now, this just makes it even more complicated and lots more to latch onto. So if I select swing heavy from there and just press play, does give me quite a nice inflection there, but what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to try bringing down the level for a start and actually applying that same delay that I applied to the hi-hats. Let's see what happens with that. Now, we've got to be a bit careful with this because I have a feeling this is going to create problems. So audio unit extensions, sample delay. Go on to the sample delay itself. It doesn't open automatically, you have to press it. I'm quite into that. Just delaying everything that's off the beat, so those complicated things can really make it swing nicely, especially at a slower tempo. So I'm quite happy with that. Now let's see what happens then if I try and put a bass line down with this. So I'm going to go to the amplifier and the bass. I'm going to switch the monitor on, and I've got an iRig Stomp here which I've plugged my bass guitar into, which allows me to record straight onto GarageBand. So let's see what happens if I try recording. This might work. It might not. That's the fun of it. That, for me, made it comfortable to play along with. I had everything it was just unhurried. It wasn't sort of, it wasn't doing all of that. Now, it's important also to make sure that your metronome is off. Not only does that sound drive most of us around the twist anyway, it's useful for counting in, and actually once you've got a decent drum track, you don't need anything else. You can just play along to your newly found humanised drum kit. Now I'm going to add a guitar to this, just a clean guitar, just real subtle stuff. Incidentally, go on to townshipguitars.com and you can see these oil can guitars. They're fantastic. So I'll just switch the monitor on. Okay, let's see what happens. Now, I was going a little bit too fast on that, partly because the monitoring level, I'm going to undo that, the monitoring level was just a little bit too high. I couldn't hear the hi-hats and those bits of percussion, so I'm actually going to lower the guitar output a little. In practice, there is a tiny bit of latency as well, but it's not enough to put me off. So I'm just going to go and record that again. That for me was easier to play to. Now, with any guitar, if you're just putting a second part on this, perhaps I'll just go back, actually I'll just duplicate that track. There we go. That's the quick way of doing it. Go into the thing itself, put the monitor on. Now, I'm going to turn this up a bit now because I'm just going to put a part that's rhythmically very simple but just goes with those hi-hats. Now, once you've done your recording, you can take away, if you like, some of those parts. If I took away the percussion and made the hi-hats maybe even quieter, you can allow those instruments to actually do your rhythmic sort of delineation for you. Perhaps I can put the bass and the snare drum up a bit, maybe add a little bit more kick by just increasing the bass. Maybe a tiny bit of reverb and compression on those drums. Okay, now that at the end was a little bit fast, or rather it was not fast, it was a little bit early. So I can go into here, just find those last three chords, there they are. Now I can see that the chords are ever so slightly early. So if I split that there, and I'm going to go to the end, just bring that in slightly, and I'm going to drag the whole thing ever so slightly to the right, so that now that first guitar stab will line up with those hi-hats there. See what happens with that. So if I just go back a bar or something. There you go, that's lined up now. So it's really important that you have those hi-hats. I kind of thought, oh, that at the last minute. So this is all improvised. I haven't written anything down. I'm just going to play along and see what happens. That's my excuse anyway. There is a way of making those hi-hats really groove for you, especially at slower tempos. 66 is really slow and it's quite difficult to play along with that. But if you've got enough going on in your drum track and your percussion, actually you can do wonders with your playing.